FNAF community loves Fredbear, and as one of the scariest FNAF animatronics, I understand why. Making his first appearance in FNAF 4, Nightmare and normal Fredbear took the community by storm, and it turned into some pretty horrifying creations and fan versions of Fredbear. However, today we aren't talking about fan versions, we're talking fan theories of our one and only Fredbear. Or is there really only one? That's what we're exploring today. Greetings gamers and welcome back to Top 10 Gaming. I'm Connor Monroe and this is the top 10 scary FNAF Fredbear theories. Let's do it. And at 10, lonely. This is pretty much confirmed to be incorrect at this point, but still kinda terrifying if you think about it. The theory that Fredbear plushies that follow you around in the 8-bit minigames of FNAF 4 being Lonely Freddy is damn creepy. At least if we assume that Lonely Freddy would be trying to take over Crying Child's body. If you didn't know, the Lonely Freddy dolls were introduced in the Fazbear Fright story called Lonely Freddy, where it steals the main character Alex's body, leaving his consciousness trapped inside the robot. It's entirely possible that it wasn't trying to do so to Crying Child, and that instead William created the Lonely Freddy to keep an eye on him, and took the whole wanna steal your body part out of the code. So the fact that this is a camera could confirm this theory as false, but the two don't have to be mutually exclusive. However, the presence of a plush in the sister location camera office, and it being a plush not a robot, is certainly damning to this theory. And at 9, one and the same. One theory I've seen plenty of times, and I'm pretty sure was mostly around the start of FNAF 4, was that Golden Freddy and Fredbear are the same animatronic, suggesting that the reason Golden Freddy is all limp in the original FNAF and FNAF 2 is because his endoskeleton was removed after the Crying Child's bite in 1983, and that's why the suit has to teleport around and cause hallucinations, because it can't physically move. This would also probably mean that Crying Child was the one in the Golden Freddy suit. However, we know this isn't true based on characters being separate in Ultimate Custom Night, so they are two different characters, Fredbear and Golden Freddy, and just coloring and size in general, since Golden Freddy is much smaller than Fredbear would be, since Fredbear would also have to accommodate a human and Golden Freddy wouldn't, since Golden Freddy is just an animatronic and not a springlock suit like Fredbear. At least we think he's a springlock suit, I'm pretty sure. And at 8, death. Nightmare from FNAF 4 is in essence an inverted color scheme Fredbear. He serves as the game's primary or ultimate antagonist, and this theory goes that Nightmare is symbolic of death, since death is after all the ultimate fight for Crying Child, as he lay on his hospital bed, fighting for his life. Nightmare's design also features a visible brain, which you can see through his translucent head, which could also be symbolic of brain death, which we know is possible since the game is actively using Crying Child's brain, so it's possible that he could then be brain dead. In Ultimate Custom Night, we are also told by Nightmare that he is William's wickedness made of flesh, which only further enhances this theory, since it was William's creation that ultimately caused the Crying Child to get injured, and William is the one who pulls the plug on Crying Child after promising him that he will put him back together, whatever that means. It could also just be that Crying Child's brain is slowly getting less and less oxygen, causing his hallucinations to become stronger as he slowly dies. And it's 7 generations. The Fredbear animatronic may have had multiple variations over the years, according to one theory posted by a deleted account on the FNAF subreddit. This theory proposed that there are in fact 3 different Fredbear animatronics that we've seen throughout the games. The first one being the one from FNAF 4 in Fredbear's Family Diner in 1983, another being the Golden Freddy animatronics from FNAF 1 and 2, and the third being Yendo from Sister Location. Yendo was always a strange animatronic. Some thought of him as Funtime Freddy's golden version, others thought it was a confirmation of the Foxy X Freddy oh, sorry, I meant ship. Others thought that it was just another bear animatronic that was never finished. This idea proposed that in fact it was meant to be the sister location Fredbear that was cancelled after Circus Babies closed. It is after all an incomplete animatronic, lacking casing over most of its body, only having facial features, so it could very well be an incomplete Funtime Fredbear. Since William did lose his son to the animatronic, it is possible that he also just couldn't bring himself to completing it. And at 6, stomach mouth. The stomach mouths present on the Nightmare animatronics have been a matter of guesswork since FNAF 4's release. The stomach mouth is most visible on Fredbear and Nightmare, since it appears to be the main feature of the two. However, the only explanation that we have for this feature that makes sense is that Crying Child witnessed his sister get scooped by Baby, which as far as we know is the only animatronic to capture someone by opening up their stomach. It would also make sense given that she is his sister and he would probably be around her at the grand opening to Circus Baby's Pizza World. They probably went to get ice cream together, or maybe he was trying to warn her, saying that Dad told us to stay away from Baby, but watching his sister get scooped would also explain the complicated relationship he has with these animatronics. He obviously loves them since he has all the plushies, but seeing his sister get scooped would definitely make him weary of animatronics in the future. I would definitely be terrified. I mean, I would also get my kicked because I let my sister get killed by an animatronic, but like, yeah. Halfway through and at number 5, mommy. This is a bonkers theory that I'm certain isn't true, but it's still fun to talk about it anyway. You don't really have to believe every theory that you talk about. One Amino Apps user suggests that perhaps the psychic friend Fredbear plush isn't William's camera, but instead is possessed by their mother. It could actually make sense. If the plush was in the room when the mother died, whether William killed her or it was like a family car accident, the plush could be there. And since it's their child's favorite toy, the mother could also gravitate towards it. It would also explain why William would keep it in the office like we see in Sister Location, keeping it next to the cameras he was using to watch over his son in an attempt to keep him safe. He wouldn't want to get rid of it because it contains the soul of his former love. He would also keep it deep underground where memories sleep, to keep her close to her daughter. And another reason why he would send Michael down there in the first place, to see his sister and his mother. In at 4, Nightmare. While Nightmare is most likely meant to represent death, there are some other possibilities as well. Like, for example, that Nightmare is in fact Shadow Nightmare Fredbear. Since after all, the character is in essence a shadow, being dark in color and translucent like a shadow would be. It also relates to another theory that Crying Child is in fact Shadow Freddy from FNAF 2, meaning it could be the representation of what Crying Child would become after he caught him, or after just dying in general after being taken off life support, as we see at the end of the game. Or that Nightmare is meant to be the shadow of Nightmare Freddy instead of Nightmare Fredbear, since the shadow animatronics always seem to have more of a sinister appearance. Perhaps Nightmare is in fact Fredbear, and this is just a representation of what Crying Child had to deal with in the 8-bit minigames, playing out in his head as his body tries to understand his current situation. Like how they say your life flashes before your eyes the moments before you die, except it's playing out in a horrific form due to his situation and, you know, his fear of the animatronics. Getting close to the end in at number 3, impossible. Actually, could this have even happened at all? Could Fredbear have crushed Crying Child's skull? It's a question that many have asked, and one that I've brought up on this channel as well. I seem to think that it shouldn't have been, assuming this was a regular animatronic and not a high-powered skull-crushing machine, since it would take an insane amount of force, way higher than a normal animatronic would be able to generate to even crack the skull, not to mention crush it, as we are meant to believe this whole thing plays out. To cause that kind of damage, the animatronic would require pneumatic actuators that are industry-grade and huge. They would take up way more space than any animatronic could reasonably fit inside, especially at that scale. Even if it was under the stage, we're meant to believe that these are springlock suits that can change between suit and animatronic, and there is no way, if they were using those, anyone would be able to get in the suit, let alone be willing to. Seems pretty far-fetched to me, even for this series. Penultimately, in at number 2, Survivor. This may be a slight deviation, but what if Crying Child was going to survive? Like I just said, it's highly unlikely that Crying Child sustained real severe damage due to his head being crushed by this animatronic. However, if he still managed to wind up in the hospital, are we sure he wasn't going to make it out? Obviously, they would only suggest taking him off life support if they didn't think he'd recover, but it's possible that he still would. And we see Crying Child actively fighting to stay alive inside of his mind over the course of the 5 nights. And if Nightmare, our final boss, is meant to represent death, the thing we want to avoid, and we beat him, could we have made a recovery? We don't know, because we still die, because William pulls the plug on us, making us think that no matter how much it pained him, maybe he needed us gone. Maybe we saw something, like our sister getting scooped, or maybe we asked too many questions. But if we could survive Nightmare, maybe we could have survived death. Maybe we could have been spared. Maybe we could have been saved. Finally, in at number 1, Crying Child. Then there is the final theory that Crying Child himself goes on to possess Fredbear, meaning that Fredbear goes on to become Golden Freddy, and that Crying Child and Cassidy decide to share a vessel in the form of Golden Freddy and work together to stop William. But how would this be possible? Because of Remnant. Remnant is the combination of metal and the intense agony felt while being murdered or killed. This agony, as we learn in Fazbear Frights, is so powerful that it can stretch out from beyond our bodies and grab hold of objects. This is how the FNAF animatronics become possessed. This is also how Crying Child would have possessed Fredbear, since I'm guessing having your skull crushed is a pretty agonizing way to go out. And that's coming from me, someone who enjoys the suffering of others. Because even if they are young, the children who run up and down my hall make my dog upset, and my dog is basically my fur child, so I must protect him. Unfortunately, I don't have an animatronic or enough money to pay rent for my sister while I'm in prison, so guess I'm staying out here for now. Guess I unfortunately don't deal There we have it, friends, the top 10 scary FNAF Fredbear fan theories. Which of these theories, if any, do you believe, and do you have any theories of your own? Be sure you let me know down below. Thank you all so much for watching. I have been and shall remain Connor Monroe, and I'll see you in another video.